cut me. Yes, they did. They must have cut me.
Klay Thompson is washed. I know he's coming off back-to-back injuries. A ruptured ACL or Achilles is career-ending for 99.9999% of players. But when he first came back, it did not look this bad. Yeah, of course, defensively, he lost a step. But offensively, I'd say Klay was close to 90% of what he was. Last season, Klay averaged 22 points per game, shooting 44% from 3. And this season, he has fallen off an absolute cliff. 14 points per game. This is the fewest since his rookie season, and he's shooting 33% from 3. But this really doesn't give you the full picture. Some of his recent standout performances this season include a 1 for 8 from 3 versus Detroit, a 31% from the field, and 3 of 10 from 3 versus the Timberwolves. And in the second game of that back-to-back versus the Timberwolves, he gave them a whopping 0 points and 2 minutes before being ejected. Then the next game, he shot 10% with only 5 points versus OKC. But honestly, I don't even think that was his worst game. Maybe it's just because I was watching that OKC game live the other night in its full entirety, and you guys can tell me if I'm wrong, but that was the worst 16-point performance I have ever seen. The decision making was atrocious. Just watching him force bad shot after bad shot, specifically during the overtime of this last Thunder game. Klay took 2 awful threes, not just super contested, but you had over 10 seconds left on the shot clock. Why would you do this in a tight game when you already don't have it going that night? And I really think this play is what lost them the game. And also Steve Kerr choosing not to foul in the final 2 seconds when he's up 3 points. Why even give him the chance to be able to tie? And Chet made them pay for that. When I watch Klay play, it's like watching the old guy at the park brick skyhooks. You've fallen off from your glory days and you just cannot accept it. It's making you do things that are out of character. There's been so many times this season where Klay will not shoot a slightly contested 3, but instead try to put the ball on the ground to sidestep or do a step back 3. What are you doing? Who are you? This was never your game. You're Mr. 60 points on 11 dribbles. Now you're out there hooping like Gio Wise. But maybe it's just a slump, right? Just a 14-game slump, but maybe it's not. Realistically, athletes are not supposed to come back from ACL or Achilles injuries, especially not when you have those injuries back to back. And when you add that to age, with Klay soon to be 34 years old, what else could you really expect? It takes a very special type of player to average over 20 points a game at that age. And before last night, Steph only had one teammate to have 20 or more points in a game, and that was Dario Saric. There is no way you can call this team a title contender. Yeah, Steph is still the greatest point guard in the world, but Draymond is old. Klay is barely shooting the 3 better than Russell Westbrook, and Wiggins has been absolutely awful up until last night, so hopefully this was his bounce back game. But the Warriors are currently a 10th seed, 6-8 for the season. And with this much parity in the NBA, especially the West, you cannot afford to give up games. Every single game matters. So what do? What can you do? Well, Klay is in the final year of his 5-year, $190 million deal, and I wouldn't re-sign him if he continues to perform like this. But I can still see the Warriors keeping him maybe if he would take less, a lot less, especially considering he did so much for that franchise. And I really don't know how Steph is behind scenes, but I would assume he's the type of guy who would not be excited if they did decide to move Klay. But let's consider they did want to trade him. He is an expiring contract, which has some value. Maybe if a team wanted to salary match another big contract so they can have that cap space available for them next offseason so they could sign a new talent, it could make sense. I have been seeing the rumors for lavine. Me personally, I think it's an awful trade for the Bulls, swapping 1-for-1 Zach for Klay. You need some type of draft capital. But honestly, what's that draft capital even going to be worth, especially if Zach and Steph are playing together for the next 4 to 5 years? Those picks are going to be worthless. Maybe if you threw in one of the young guys like Moody or Kuminga, but the Bulls are an awful franchise who don't realize it's time to blow it up completely, especially since their star point guard may never run again. So I could actually see them swapping 1-for-1 just so they can take another swing at finding a third star to put next to DeRozan and Vucevic. But I highly doubt anyone gets moved, especially Draymond or Klay. They've just done too much for that team and that city. And honestly, they've earned the right to retire there. But that will mean compromise. You need to take the role and the salary of a guy who scores 10 points on 27% shooting. This contract negotiation will tell you everything you need to know about how the Warriors are moving forward. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Will they try to trade Klay, or will Klay take a team-friendly deal? Remember to like and subscribe so we can keep talking hoops.